So I want you to think about a high-stakes poker game, right? But every single player at the table has caught the others cheating in the past.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a tense table.
Right, like they have spent literally decades trying to bankrupt one another, suing each other,
Yeah.
publicly attacking each other's reputations.
Sounds exhausting, honestly.
It is, yet tonight, they were all just like pooling their money together to try and buy out the casino.
It sounds like an impossible premise for a movie, really.
Exactly. But it is the exact reality of what is happening today. So welcome to another Deep Dive. Today is Saturday, April 25, 2026.
And as we speak, there is this monumental, frankly unprecedented political gathering unfolding in real time in Ibadan, Nigeria.
Yeah, it really is. We are working from a comprehensive briefing document today. It's a source text titled The Ibadan Summit, Forging a United Opposition for 2027.
And our mission for this deep dive is to, decode the hidden architecture of this event.
Right. We want to understand the underlying mechanisms, right? The relationships, the bitter rivalries, and the literal legal landmines that somehow brought the absolute biggest names in Nigerian politics into a single banquet hall.
But before we map out who is actually in that room, we really need to set some crucial ground rules for you, our listener.
Oh, absolutely. This is so important because the source text we are analyzing today is inherently heavily politically charged.
Yeah, it involves the maneuvers of multiple Nigerian political parties. Specifically, we're talking about the ruling APC, the PDP, the ADC, and the Labour Party.
And because of that, we just must make it crystal clear we take absolutely no sides here.
None at all.
We do not endorse any left-wing, right-wing, or party-specific viewpoints. We are strictly acting as impartial guides.
Right. Our only job today is to convey the factual ideas, the statements, and the events exactly as they're reported in the original source material.
We're just examining the structural mechanics of coalition building, not cheering for any specific political outcome.
We are basically looking at the chessboard from above, analyzing the physics of the game itself.
I love that. All right, let's step into the physical space. Picture the banquet hall of the Oyo State Government House.
Okay, setting the scene.
The heavyweights confirmed by outlets like Sahara Reporters and The Cable, they read like a historical index of the last 25 years of Nigerian democracy.
Oh, for sure. It's a massive list.
You have former President Olusegun Obasanjo sitting as the chairman. You have the host, Governor Seyi Makinde.
And former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is there too, right?
Yes, alongside former governors Rabiu Kwankwaso and Peter Obi. You've got former Senate President David Mark, Rauf Aregbesola, and Senator Ireti Kingibe.
And beyond just the politicians, the schedule of keynote speakers really reveals the strategic intent of the summit, I think.
How so?
Well, they've brought in heavy hitters to cover the foundational pillars of governance. Like Professor Chidi Odikolo is speaking on human rights and democracy.
Oh, that's a big name.
Yeah, and Dr. Usman Bugaje, barrister Mike Ijini, who is a very vocal electoral reform advocate, by the way, plus Professor Pat Utomi and security analyst Dr. Kabir Adamu are all on the docket.
Okay, let's unpack this because a massive political convergence like this doesn't just happen by accident.
No, definitely not.
They didn't just rent some random hotel ballroom in the federal capital of Abuja. They specifically chose Ibadan. Why does the geography of this meeting matter so much?
Well, the location itself serves as a massive, multi-layered political statement.
Really? That's the city?
Yeah. To understand the mechanics of this choice, you have to look at the historical resonance of Ibadan. This city was the headquarters of the Western region under Obafemi Awolowo's action group back in the mid-20th century.
Oh, wow. So this isn't just a convenient meeting spot. They are intentionally trying to invoke the ghost of Awolowo's political movement.
Exactly. They're channeling that specific legacy. Awolowo's action group, and later the UPN, built a political culture that was really centered on regional autonomy and robust, highly organized opposition to the central government.
So it's deeply symbolic.
Very. Oyo State, along with Lagos, has historically produced the most consistent opposition politics in Nigeria's democratic history. It is like the spiritual home of organized political resistance.
But there is a very pragmatic modern layer to this as well, right? I mean, they aren't just meeting in the city, they're meeting at the Oyo State Government House.
Yes, and That is the crucial mechanical difference. By hosting this at the official government house, Governor Seyi Makinde is granting this opposition gathering the physical legitimacy of state authority.
That's a huge flex.
It is. When you use the government house, you are utilizing state protocol, state security apparatus, and the official prestige of the governor's office.
So it's not just a bunch of guys in a room.
Right. It signals to the ruling party, the APC, that this is not a fringe gathering of disgruntled candidates. It is a movement sanctioned and protected by a sitting executive.
Which brings up a very tense undercurrent, because the path to this venue apparently involves some serious friction, according to our sources.
Oh, definitely.
The spokesman for the ADC, Balaji Abdullahi, he came out swinging today with some pretty heavy allegations against the ruling party.
Yeah, he accused the APC of actively attempting to disrupt the summit. He claimed they had previously denied the opposition access to venues in Abuja for earlier engagements.
Which, I mean, denying a venue sounds like a minor logistical hiccup to a casual observer, but how does that actually impact a political movement at this level?
It's huge. When a ruling party allegedly blocks access to public or high-profile private venues in the capital, they are trying to fracture the opposition's momentum.
And keep them scrambling.
Exactly. It forces organizers to constantly scramble, it creates a perception of instability, and it limits their ability to project power to the press.
Have the APC responded to this?
Well, as of our source texts compilation, the APC hasn't formally responded to Abdullahi's allegations. But, the truth of the allegation is almost secondary to its function.
What do you mean?
The narrative of being actively suppressed feeds a sense of existential dread among the opposition. It forces them to unite simply to survive.
Wow. But, a venue is just a building, though.
True.
The detail that genuinely made me do a double take while reading our sources is the architect who opened the doors.
Oh, Seyi Makinde.
Yes, the host of this entire Unity Summit, Governor Makinde, is the very man who materially helped tank the opposition's chances just 3 years ago.
It's quite the plot twist.
To put this in perspective for the listener, it's like a lead guitarist who walks off stage right before the world tour, drives the band into bankruptcy, and then suddenly hosts a massive reunion dinner for the band a few years later in his own living room.
That is a very accurate analogy.
Like, what on earth is his strategy here? What changed?
Well, Makinde's trajectory is basically a masterclass in political leverage. To understand how he pulled this off, we have to look at his structural position.
Okay.
Makinde is one of only 2 sitting PDP governors in the Southwest. During the 2023 election, he was a core member of the infamous G5 governors.
Right, and they famously refused to campaign for their own party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. And they did that because they felt marginalized by the party's leadership structure at the time. They essentially staged a high-profile walkout, which fractured the PDP's voting base and contributed heavily to their ultimate defeat.
Yeah, it was devastating for the party.
So why is Makinde suddenly playing the gracious host to the very people he abandoned?
What's fascinating here is how mutual survival dictates shifting alliances. Makinde realizes that an isolated regional governor, even a really popular one, is incredibly vulnerable to the massive federal might of the ruling APC.
So he needs backup.
Right. If the opposition remains fractured, the APC can easily pick them off one by one in the 2027 elections.
Oh, I see.
By establishing his home turf of Oyo State as the new headquarters for the unified opposition, Makinde makes himself structurally indispensable.
He transforms from a rogue spoiler into the primary power broker of the Southwest.
Precisely.
And I know the sources mention a very specific timeline that led to Makinde's pivot. There was a major behind-the-scenes event earlier this month.
Yes. On April 8th, 2026, there was a highly confidential, closed-door meeting at the Apo residence of former Senate President David Mark in Abuja.
Oh, to be a fly on a wall in that room?
Seriously, that was the laboratory where this current coalition was synthesized.
And looking at the guest list from that April 8 meeting, it's just staggering. You had Makinde sitting down with Atiku Abubakar, the very man he refused to support in 2023.
Yep.
You had Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso, Aminu Tambuwal, and Abubakar Malami.
You also had vital factional leaders present, leaders of the Mark-led faction of the ADC and the Taraki-led faction of the PDP.
So bringing all of those specific moving parts into one room, it proves how quickly political rapprochement occurs when the alternative is political extinction.
Exactly. When your survival is on the line, grudges disappear pretty fast.
But as impressive as it is that Makinde and Atiku are in the same room again, There is an even more volatile dynamic sitting right at the head table today in Ibadan.
Oh, you're talking about the 20-year feud.
Yes, a rivalry that goes back over 2 decades. You were looking at the chairman of the summit, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and his relationship with Atiku Abubakar.
It is wild that they are sitting together.
Wait, hold on. Atiku is sitting at a table chaired by Obasanjo, the guy who literally supported Atiku's rival, Peter Obi, in the last election.
Yes.
If you look at the history, Obasanjo actively worked to strip Atiku of his influence when they were in office together between 1999 and 2007. He even supported criminal charges against him at one point.
It was incredibly bitter.
So why on earth would Atiku agree to be in that room? Isn't he just walking into a trap?
Well, it absolutely looks like a trap from the outside. The animosity between them is, like, institutionalized.
Yeah.
During their second term in office, Obasanjo and Atiku were essentially running parallel hostile governments within the presidency.
Which is crazy to think about.
But Atiku is in that room today because the structural gravity of the coalition demands it. An April 21 analysis by the Council on Foreign Relations highlighted the immense behind-the-scenes pressure being applied to Atiku right now.
Pressure from who?
His traditional financial and political backers, they are heavily canvassing for him to yield the presidential ticket.
And they want him to yield it to the very pairing that Obasanjo has been secretly constructing, right?
Oh.
Our sources mentioned some very aggressive back-channeling by the former president.
Oh, yeah. In January 2026, the Sunday Punch reported that Obasanjo met with Rabiu Kwankwaso at his presidential library in Abeokuta.
Right.
And the explicit goal of that meeting was to push Kwankwaso to accept a vice presidential slot under a Peter Obi-led ticket.
Wow.
Furthermore, Tribune Online reported that Obasanjo strongly believes the concept of equity demands an Igbo president, referring to Peter Obi's ethnic background, and he views Obi as the only candidate with enough cross-regional appeal to unite the opposition base.
So what does this all mean for Atiku? You have a chairman who has spent 20 years trying to keep his former VP out of the top job, actively building a coalition for other men in the room.
It's quite the setup.
And Atiku clearly knows this is happening. He did an interview on Arise Television just last week where he openly acknowledged the pressure to step aside, claiming he would support whoever wins the ticket, even if it's Peter Obi.
But consider the dual nature of that statement.
What do you mean?
While he offered this public humility, he simultaneously stated in that very same interview that none of his rivals come close to his pedigree or political capital.
Oh, I see. He's saying, I will happily be a team player, but let's be honest, I own the team.
Precisely the subtext. Atiku's public posture is a tactical feint. By attending the summit and expressing a willingness to step down, he neutralizes the argument that he is the obstacle to unity.
So he plays the good guy.
Right. He stays in the room, retains his visibility, and buys time to deploy his own considerable resources to counter Obasanjo's maneuvering.
It is incredible political theater. So Obasanjo is maneuvering to push Atiku out of the driver's seat, and Atiku is smiling while holding tightly onto the steering wheel.
That's a great way to picture it.
But the ultimate irony here is that they are fighting over the keys to a car that doesn't actually have an engine.
Ah, yes. The vehicle itself.
Let's look at the vehicle they are fighting over, because the party platform they intend to use is currently in pieces.
You're talking about the African Democratic Congress, or the ADC?
Yeah. I know they are talking about using the ADC as the primary platform to bypass the baggage of their old parties. But isn't the ADC dealing with a massive internal legal crisis right now?
It's worse than a crisis, honestly. It's a legal landmine. To understand the severity, you have to understand the role of INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Right.
In Nigeria, INEC is the absolute gatekeeper of the ballot. Political parties are strictly regulated entities, and INEC only recognizes party executives who emerge from properly conducted, legally valid conventions.
And right now, the ADC doesn't have that. As of April 22, just days ago, the leadership dispute is sitting before the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's a mess.
You have competing factions claiming total control of the party structure.
We have a faction led by Nafiu Bala Abejide, who actually went on record to declare the party's recent April 14 convention entirely null and void.
Wow.
Then you have another prominent figure, Leek Abejide, warning earlier this week that any aspirant running under the ADC risks their entire political future if this crisis isn't solved immediately.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you have all these grand, sweeping speeches happening in Ibadan today about saving democracy and forging unity.
Lots of applause lines.
But if we look at the mechanics, what is the point of a united opposition if the political party they're using legally cannot field a candidate?
Exactly.
Like if the chairman of the ADC signs a candidate's nomination form, but INEC doesn't legally recognize that chairman, what happens?
INE invalidates the ticket. The candidate is disqualified before a single vote is cast.
So it's game over before it begins.
That hard procedural reality is exactly why Barrister Makajini's scheduled keynote today is arguably the most vital presentation of the entire summit.
Right, the electoral reform advocate.
Because as a former INS resident electoral commissioner, Ainini understands that grand political intentions mean absolutely nothing without legally defensible party structures.
He knows how the plumbing actually works.
And the plumbing has a hard deadline. There is an INEC mandate that all party primaries must be concluded by May 30.
Wait, May 30th? That's like 5 weeks away?
Yep. If the Supreme Court does not resolve the ADC's leadership crisis, or if the factions cannot legally consolidate an executive body that INT recognizes before that May 30 deadline, this entire coalition has no legal mechanism to contest the 2027 election.
Wow. So they have less than 5 weeks to resolve a Supreme Court dispute, pacify warring factions, and elect a leadership board that every major ego in that banquet hall agrees on.
It's a tall order.
With a fractured legal vehicle and these incredibly bitter, deeply personal internal histories, how does this alliance possibly survive?
That's the million-dollar question.
To answer that, our briefing document asks us to look at the historical precedents. How do coalitions actually survive in this environment?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, history provides a very clear map of the structural conditions required for success. Analysts generally look at three major attempts at broad opposition unity in modern Nigerian democratic history.
Okay, let's go through them.
First, the 1998 alliance between northern political power brokers and Afenifere.
And for our listeners who might not know, Afenifere is the dominant Yoruba sociocultural organization, which historically wields immense political influence in the Southwest.
Right. That 1998 alliance was highly successful and ultimately produced Olusegun Obasanjo's presidency.
Okay, so that's one success.
Then you have the 2013 merger that created the current ruling party, the APC. They successfully fused multiple regional parties, the ACN, CPC, and ANPP, to defeat an incumbent government.
Another massive success.
But conversely, you have the 2023 PDP campaign, which attempted to be a massive coalition but ended in a spectacular internal collapse due to the G5 walkout we discussed earlier.
So what separates the successful mergers of 1998 and 2013 from the massive failure of 2023?
It usually comes down to structure. The successful coalitions relied on either an overwhelmingly dominant unifying figure who could enforce discipline, or an airtight, legally binding power-sharing agreement that satisfied all the regional power brokers before the election even took place.
They resolved the who gets what's question early.
Exactly. No ambiguity.
But looking at the Ibadan summit today, they don't seem to have either of those things. Instead, they seem to be relying on a highly precarious strategy that analysts call straddling.
Oh, straddling is fascinating.
Can you explain the mechanics of how straddling actually works?
Sure. Straddling is a survival mechanism where key political figures try to exist in two institutional worlds simultaneously to hedge their bets.
Like who?
Take Governor Makinde and Aminu Tambuwal, for example. They are attending this ADC coalition summit, projecting unity with the new opposition movement.
Smiling for the cameras.
Exactly. But mechanically, they are still firmly entrenched within the PDP structure. They fund local PDT chapters, their loyalists hold PDP tickets, and they have not formally resigned their memberships.
They're keeping one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat, waiting to see which one sinks first.
Precisely. And it creates a massive trust deficit.
I can imagine.
The complexity deepens because the PDP hasn't given up on its own internal repair. Our sources note that massive historical figures, former military president Ibrahim Babangida, Obasanjo himself, and leaders of the Turaki-led faction of the PDP are quietly engaged in PDP reconciliation efforts in the background.
Just to anchor that for the listener, the PDP is currently split into factions because of the fallout from the 2023 elections, with different camps fighting over control of the party's National Working Committee.
Right.
And the Turaki-led faction is one of those groups trying to seize the reins.
So consider the multidimensional chess being played here. If those PDP reconciliation efforts succeed, does this new ADC coalition dissolve back into the PDP?
Oh, that's a good point.
Or if this Ibadan coalition solidifies, does it actively cannibalize the remaining structures of the PDP?
It's dizzying, honestly. But I want to bring this back to you, the listener. Think about your own life for a second.
Yeah, put yourself in their shoes.
Have you ever been in a situation, maybe in a corporate merger, a tense community organizing effort, or even a messy family estate dispute where you had to explicitly align with someone you consider a rival just to achieve a shared goal.
It requires a temporary, highly unnatural suppression of ego.
It really does. And it highlights the universal fragility of coalition logic. In those situations, you are bound together not by shared affection or even shared values, but entirely by a shared obstacle.
Exactly.
The moment that obstacle is removed, or the moment the tactical advantage shifts, the gravity holding you together instantly disappears.
Whew, gone.
That is the tightrope these politicians are walking in the banquet hall in Ibadan today.
And with the May 30 INEC deadline looming, they have to walk that tightrope while legally blindfolded.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. Our source material focuses heavily on the mechanics of getting to the starting line, right?
Yeah, the analysis is consumed by the race to May 30.
Who gets the ticket? How do they legally secure the ADC party platform? How do they outmaneuver the ruling APC to simply get on the ballot?
All very tactical.
But I want you to consider the day after a hypothetical victory.
Day one of actual governance.
Exactly. If an alliance is forged purely out of the tactical necessity of defeating a ruling party, if you are welding together bitter 20-year rivals, men who have tried to put each other in prison, along with legally fractured party factions whose leaders are actively suing each other, what actually happens on day one?
It's a terrifying prospect, honestly.
Does that volatile, highly reactive, tactical chemistry simply become the operating system of the government itself?
You have to assume so.
Because winning the keys to the car is one thing, but if four different people who fundamentally distrust each other are all trying to hold onto the steering wheel at the same time, you are going to crash before you even leave the driveway.
A coalition built solely on the shared desire to oppose often lacks the structural integrity required to govern.
Something to mull over as the news out of Nigeria continues to break over the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Ibadan Summit.
It's been great.
Keep questioning the architecture of the news around you. Always look for the hidden seating charts in the room, and we'll catch you next time.